Hola and buenos dias. This is Jesse tuning in from the West Coast. Thank you for joining us this morning and afternoon if you're on the East Coast. I'm the founder of Latino Startup Alliance. And, before we get started here, I want to go ahead and take a moment to honor and take a moment of gratitude for our first responders, our doctors and nurses, our immigrants, our farm workers, and all the service workers that are serving on the front line. And so we are definitely grateful and blessed to have them be there and making sure that we're all staying healthy as much as possible and also eating our well-nourished meals. In addition, we want to thank our great partners at We're All Human. As a Hispanic Star Alliance member, we're grateful to them to help us facilitate this series of webinars to really showcase Hispanic Stars in Tech and talk about how we can better support our community with respect to our founders, startups, and also talent. So our mission is to connect you with a guest speaker each week and highlight the work that they're doing. And then more importantly, how they can be of help and support with the work that they're doing within our Latinx community. And so this morning, I'm honored to have Josh Encarnación, who is the co-founder and also the CEO for OUTCO. Josh, buenos dias. How are you doing?
Buenos dias, doing well. I appreciate you kicking off with a moment of gratitude.
Yes. And so first of all, how's your family doing? Friends, teammates at the company?
Family's safe. Actually was just sharing earlier, my sister's graduating San Jose State this spring. A very interesting experience for her, given that graduation is going to be hosted via Zoom.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Right. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
Mom and younger siblings are in Massachusetts, back in Springfield, Mass. Extended fam, aunts and uncles are all in Springfield, Mass as well. Some family in New York, everyone's doing well so far. Team at OUTCO, everyone's pretty safe. Interesting, we worked through 2 cases of COVID, but we're all working through it together. Unfortunately, everyone's in a good place and just trying to figure out how we play our part in serving the larger community.
Right. Well, certainly glad to hear. And again, thank you for sharing your time with us this morning. So, so you're in tech. So tell us a little bit about yourself, right? And that journey, and how you got to OUTCO.
What do you want to start? Beginning or where we are?
Well, I think it's important to share, with our community, what was that journey, right? And then what were the steps that you took to really become a, emerging thought leader in this space and represent us as, Latinx in tech, and then helping, others with respect to their tech journeys.
Well, I appreciate you being considerate enough to think about me as a thought leader for Latinx in tech. But I grew up with MySpace and the origination of, the use of Facebook in everyday life. And I remember the first couple tweets coming out on the platform and being able to put hands on, creating my own persona back in 2010, 2009, 2008, right, when social media was starting to emerge into the world.
Right.
It was around the time I was graduating high school and going to college.
Okay.
So I graduated from the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth in 2014. I actually got into UMass Dartmouth through a program for underrepresented students, College Now. And I was basically provided the opportunity to join the College of Engineering. So 2010, 11, and 12, I was at UMass Dartmouth College of Engineering, and I was in the general engineering space, but I got to learn the foundational thinking, everything from the math behind problem solving, using equations, touching upon different problem solving mindsets and methods that bleed into writing code today and being a programmer today and in software engineering today. Mm-hmm. But I sophomore to junior year, quickly learned I didn't want to be an engineer.
Okay.
Um,
That's funny.
yeah, and I figured that out in my minor studies, which was in leadership and civic engagement.
Okay.
I want to work with people, but I had already developed this understanding of the pragmatic world, right? Like everything is an equation, everything is math and science.
Right.
But I got to dive deep into the psychology of building relationships, and I got real fixated on like the role of interpersonal relationships, building businesses and organizations. Namely, I switched from engineering to human resources, which I remember the dean of engineering being like, "What are you doing? Like you're literally a brown like kid in the College of Engineering at the moment. Why are you switching?" And that came with a lot of pressure, un montón de presión, because my mom is Dominican, and she was like, "You're going to be an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer."
The typical three career paths, right?
And she was like, "You're switching what?" And this was probably the second time I had broke my mom's heart, because in high school, I went from playing baseball, I was a third baseman, to football. And she was like, "What are you doing?" But no, she was supportive in the transition, and it played out in my favor, luckily. And it took a lot of mentorship and a lot of support, a lot of coaching, a lot of guidance from people that were generous enough to see me still focus on tech. So it was human resources, but within the tech industry, which is
right.
And my internship between my junior and senior year of college was with State Street Corporation in Boston. And State Street at the time wasn't the most tech forward organization. I remember, being in a suit, it's 110 degrees. I'm like taking the TN, living in my then girlfriend's older sister's cousin's extra room. Like, and I couldn't afford living in Boston at the time.
Yeah.
And I'd get to the office and there was no internet access.
Ooh.
And like, I grew up in the where I had my phone, and at all times I was on the internet, right? So like I was on Twitter at my desk on my phone because I couldn't access it on my laptop, on my computer, my desktop. But they had challenged me to think about how to build an internship experience that competes in the area. So I studied Google, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I studied all the big tech companies because at the time they were all like boasting about free snacks and trips and swag and all this stuff.
Dry cleaning
And bring your dog and free health insurance for everyone you know. So like all those things just made me really fixate on understanding why they're able to do that. And I guess this is where like people started recognizing or wanting to call me different. I mean, that's me being nice to myself, but I heard like crazy, all this stuff, right?
Yep.
I would tweet at recruiters at Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and I would just ask them to get on the phone to learn from their experience. And I probably connected with something like 30 recruiters when I was 20 years old in an office in Boston with no internet access.
Confined with four walls.
With four walls. And it was just like the traditional, like when you would think about like rough internship experience. Now add the fact that I was probably on a floor of 200 people, probably one of 6 Latinos, right? And being Dominican, I've always been proud of the fact that the way I'm registered in the world and through my history, I understand my African heritage, right? So Afro-Latino is even something that's more complex in the world. Not that the story is tougher than any other, but a lot of people, when they meet me, they're like, "What are you?" I'm just so used to that question now. It's like, well, I'm Black and I'm Hispanic. And, in 2013 in Boston, I probably was like the only intern that was like proud enough to say that out loud. And looking back, I had to undo a lot of kind of experiences that left me feeling a certain way. I remember I got written up for wearing green socks in a suit. Think about that, Jesse. I got like a strike on my internship because I had green socks. Like,
Wow.
just paying attention to my socks. But anyways,
Now you have the crazy socks, right?
now I wear whatever.
Either no socks or the crazy trendy tech socks, right? There's a whole company or a couple companies founded on that.
I mean, I'm on the phone with people that are probably wearing flip flops and shorts in the office.
Right.
And that was what like made me push so hard to be able to take my career in a direction where I had more control over who I could be.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to express myself. I didn't want
Right.
to go into an office in a cubicle where everything is gray and wear a suit all day. But I think that was more so what I was thinking back then. What I was feeling was more, I wanted to say what I wanted to say and build what I wanted to build.
Right.
I didn't have internet access.
I know. I know.
But
I feel some of that pain as well, right? Early on. And then I remember, early days of, if you missed a shave in the morning, getting harassed. Hey, did your razor break, or what happened? So
that was norm. Those were the norms.
mm-hmm.
I had to pivot. I had to move. I didn't want that to be my introduction to work, especially because I genuinely cared about doing something that made my family proud and not quitting. And I guess it was a blessing in disguise because my internship project, my 3-month internship project, was to create an internship experience,
Right.
which I felt like backhand, but
yeah.
like I thought like this is an opportunity. So I connect with all these recruiters via Twitter, and which is something that I share with people today for those that are listening that want to be part of the tech industry. We're all on our phones all day, and the people with job openings are on their phones too, and they want to connect. They actually want you to reach out to them because you're doing their job for them.
Mm-hmm.
Every recruiter I know's favorite day is when they wake up and they open their email and they have 20 people asking for a job. Then they get to pay.
Right. Yep.
Versus sitting there all day looking for people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that experience was fun because I got to put together like, here's what I believe State Street's internship could be like, modeling after big tech companies. And then the recruiter I connected with at Google was like, you're pretty brave. And I was like, I'm just looking for a job after college. I was like, all right, send us your resume. That translated into interviewing for their like human resources leadership development program, which is like a program.
Right.
I got rejected. So I got that first phone call with Google in September of 2013. And I got rejected in October. But then they reconsidered me for a different role in November. And I got a job offer in January.
Okay.
And the job offer, definitely changed my life. Like at that moment, I cried like I won tickets to Disneyland, right? Because I was moving from Massachusetts to California, and I was graduating college with a job. And there's a lot of like layers to that because I think the Boston Globe was like, this kid from projects in Springfield and Lawrence, Massachusetts gets a job at Google, moves to California, which I look at now and I'm like, I wish that would have been normal. Like, I'm glad that was celebrated, but I wish that's normal. I really want that to be normal. Right. I think everybody should get a job after college.
Yep. I mean, that should be the norm, right?
So that job actually was recruiting for software engineers. So my general engineering background and my HR background kind of brought together in this role. There was a crazy amount of learning that had to happen. I mean, I wasn't mature enough to even know what it entailed to move across the country. I just did it. I had a backpack and I don't want to say the same story of like backpacking $5, but like I actually had $700 and I lived on 7th Street in San Jose, in a basement on 7th Street. And then I used to take the shuttle to Google every day.
Right.
That it was fun. It was fun. I mean,
wow. What
scary.
about the family? What did mom say when you're like, Mom, I got this job at Google and I'm moving to California?
Um, that was the hard part, right? Like family and friends, and a lot of like having to let go of all the personal relationships that I depended on all through college, high school, just as a kid. But I learned through technology, right? And think about how true it is today. Like I really wasn't letting go of anything. It's just the medium changed. Like
Right.
back then, I was okay with FaceTime and Zoom, but like
Mm-hmm.
Zoom wasn't Zoom then. It was like Google Hangouts or
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
camp I could get on. But I knew that my relationships in the physical sense weren't going to be the same. I wasn't close to everyone, but emotionally and mentally, like my friends would call me every day still.
Sure.
Um, but I did. This is a great time to talk about the fact that like I did have to learn to pick up therapy, uh, and therapy in my community wasn't as normal and as accessible. I think people in my family still struggle. Like Joshua, why you go to therapy? Like, tú eres loco. Te pasa algo. And
The typical stereotype, right?
we could laugh, and it's
Yeah.
painful. At first it was very painful, but I think it was just me learning to work through some of these tougher emotions that hold us back from taking
Mm-hmm.
advantage of opportunities like moving across the country, especially in Latino communities, Latinx communities.
And what made you search for therapy? And thank you for sharing. Like, what did you see, or who told you, or what was the?
Yeah, again, like I wish it was like a stroke of genius or something like that, but it's really lucky to the people that we meet along the journey. But my roommate in college actually was a doctor in psychology. He's going through his master's program in psychology, Haitian. One of my best friends, and so being connected on just being Caribbean all the time, we were just talking about like eating platanos and like the right, like we're in college, like not even knowing how we found each other, but like he would talk a lot about mental health, and that kind of made it normal for me to say, hey, like,
Mm,
I can, yeah, I can go to therapy. Like, it's just talking to
right.
somebody that's offering a healthy perspective. Like, and on top of the fact that like what I studied was rooted in psychology and healthy human behavior and organizing yourself and organizing people. I was like, this makes sense because I go to the gym to lift weights to
Mm-hmm.
grow muscle.
Right.
I go to therapy to sharpen my mindset.
Yeah, that's a
And
good way to put it. Yeah.
so it was like to me, I was like, yeah, like okay, I have every day I go to the gym to get strong. Like
Mm-hmm.
I need to go to the gym for my mind, especially and like books. Books are great. I read all the time, like literally reading all the time, right? But they don't talk back. So it's like
Hopefully not.
hopefully not. Yeah, sometimes they do actually.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that made it normal. But I mean, I think it's so like I think in general, um, anybody that's pushing hard to be part of the tech industry should consider therapy. I think it should almost be a prerequisite because what we're doing is we're working with machines and we're working with programs that can scale and reach people all over the world. So you're inviting perspectives from everywhere. That takes a
Right.
lot of learning in a little amount of time. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we should start a movement because, as you know, right, in the tech industry, it's come up so much, and there's been these unicorns launched with respect to mental health and wellness, and we're still seeing a lack of participation from people of color, and so
yeah, yeah, and that's why I'm glad that we're able to have this conversation. But beyond that, I think it's also too very important for us to find the right type of mental health support. Um,
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
so the more, yeah, we start a movement, but also let's keep building services that support our experiences.
right, right. Yeah, I think there was even a founder that launched a yoga for people of color, just because they weren't getting what they wanted to get out of standard yoga.
Yep,
So to your point there.
big time. And there's many founders of color that are pulling together these movements and building apps and building experiences for us. And if anybody that's listening that needs any sort of encouragement, it only takes one person to start it. And pretty certain if we're solving problems for each other, then we'll naturally gravitate towards those solutions. But I didn't want to take away from the journey.
No, but it's important. Thank you for sharing and being open and transparent, because it's, as you know, again, it's something that's not commonly talked about overall. And so, you know, it's.
And like the therapy that also too that speaks to me, you know, bailando bachata, gritando, usando, like laughing, like those are the things that I'll never shy away from either, right? Like, because there's a lot of therapy within our communities that isn't registered therapy, but like dancing, the food cooking, I still listen. I put adobo and everything. That to me is another form of therapy. The coffee I drink has always been the same cafecito that my grandmother shared with me when I was like way too young to be drinking coffee, but it helps.
It helps, yeah. Little did you know how potent it was.
I didn't know at all, and now I'm like, oh, okay, I understand, abuelita.
Yeah, my great grandma called it la droga.
La droga, that's exactly what it is.
Yep. Yep.
Una taza por la mañana, and everything is good. But,
so you were at Google. Yeah, so we were at Google, right? And so, how long were you there for?
About a year and a half. And you know, a lot of what I learned at Google, I can't unlearn. It was an amazing experience, and I do push for everyone to try and earn a job at Google. And I try to support everyone that I know personally to earn a job at Google. Great institution. Everyone there is wildly ambitious and looking to solve problems at scale. For me personally, I've always had a love-hate relationship with kind of big tech's position and moving the world towards the future. So that year and a half, although I appreciate it, I still critique a lot of what I learned in the industry as well, through the lens of Google, right? Because in one light, I got the opportunity to look through 600 software engineering resumes a week. Now, most people are like, why the hell would you find that joyous? Like, think about a kid born in Presbyterian Hospital in Manhattan, New York, right? Raised in Lawrence and Springfield, Massachusetts. My father was deported when I was 9 years old. My mother had me at 16 years old. Now I'm 21 years old and I'm reviewing software engineering resumes. People's backgrounds are working on like neuroscience, aerospace science, like I'm looking at these profiles and I'm trying to think of who these people are. And I'm like, holy shit, these are like everyday people that are working on problems like that are close to like wanting to get to Mars.
Right.
Like immediately the way that my brain just grew from just the exposure and awareness was something that I will never trade ever. And I find myself constantly in rooms where people are like, you think way too big. And in my experience, I'm like, I'm still thinking small compared to what I've seen.
Yeah.
So I see that as a privilege for sure. But then on the other hand, right, I learned things like bias in resume reviewing. And I remember sitting in an unconscious bias training session that was talking about people with long last names and how they have a harder time getting a job. And I'm like, immediately going, can you pronounce my last name? Like, Encarnación. Can you, like, that's 11 letters, right? So like, I'm in this training having this bout with myself because I'm like, you're talking about me, right? This unconscious bias training is designed for the people that would exclude me. Consciously, unconsciously, it doesn't matter. Like, to me,
computer, right?
I don't care if it's a person or a computer. Like, the point being, I'm not going to be around if this continues to exist. And so I started to understand this like pyramid effect that happens in the world, right? And I can explain that with a lot of context, given my story, right? For those of us that ascribe to being a person of color, right? You typically start off and have access to each other, right? Like the bottom of the pyramid, and then we're everywhere. Where I was born in New York and raised in Lawrence, Massachusetts, it was all Dominicans, African Americans, Nigerians, Haitians, Jamaicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans. I get to high school. My high school was 76% Black and brown. So now we go from 100% to like 76%, right?
Mm-hmm.
College I went to was predominantly white institution, so 22% Black and brown.
Yeah.
Now I'm at close to the top of the pyramid, right? Google, 5% Black and brown.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could say that I'm like theorizing or making things up, or I can just look around and be like, oh yeah, like there's not a lot of Black or brown people here. And so in that, I felt pride representing, not just for the Dominican Republic or Lawrence, Massachusetts, Springfield, Manhattan, New York. Spent a lot of time in Brooklyn growing up. My grandmother lived there. Also, just for general, like the Afro-Latino experience, for Latinos, Latinx, for Black society, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the Caribbean, experience. And all of that, it's just kind of like mounted. It was like a lot of pressure. I was like, wow, like everything I'm saying and doing is like setting a trend. But also like, we're not here yet. And to me, again, like the problems I like to solve are people problems, right? Like HR problems. That's what I studied. So I was trying to understand, like, okay, well, we can reverse engineer this, right? Like thinking pragmatically, right? We can fix this with training, education, and access to capital. And all of those things are readily available at Google. So
yeah.
I started to grow a little bit of frustration because I was like, why can't we fix this? Right? If this was a product problem, we could fix it overnight.
Right. Money, technology, and the people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I did my year and a half, and I got a lot of exposure to recruiting and also training. Google offers 20% time, and I took my 20% time to do management and leadership trainings, presenting with confidence trainings, presenting with charisma training, certain tactics of a lot of mindfulness meditation trainings, all types of trainings that were state of the art, brought together by professionals from all over the world. And again, 21, 22 years old. And I'm learning how to run these trainings and facilitating them for these brilliant minds. And I thought to myself, I want to do this outside of Google because I want people to have the same opportunity to get into Google. And that brought me to my first startup experience. So someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn. It's very important for anyone that wants to break into tech. You should for sure have a LinkedIn presence. And I was brought on to Earnest, company responsible for student loan refinancing. And I was hired as the first technical recruiter, and partly I was half reporting to the head of learning and development. They wanted me for the recruiting experience, but I personally wanted to work in L&D, learning and development, which signaled education and training, right? And like the way I've always seen us solving this problem in terms of more of us Latinos, African Americans being part of the tech industry is us being able to democratize access to the knowledge that we need, right? To pass interviews, to excel in within a company, to just stay sharp and on the ball in terms of what we need to build and how to think about what we need to build. And Earnest was a great experience. We grew from 60 to 200 in 8 to 10 months.
Wow.
It was like a wild ride. And I saw like fundraising happen like in live time. I think we secured a Series B or C of $360 million while I was there. And I was like, wow, like this is insane. Again, I'm like 22, 23 years old. And I was recruiting data engineers, product managers, data scientists, front-end engineers, network system engineers, back-end engineers, learning about JavaScript, PHP, microservices infrastructures. I'm learning about like everything about tech from the ground up. Because the product is being built in live time. And I'm recruiting people to help build the product.
Right.
So now I'm starting to understand the systems that are in place to grow a company like this. So again, from like that internship in Boston with no internet access to what people believe to be the #1 tech company in the world, to a company that just grew from 60 to 200 people in 10 months. At this point, my head is like I'm all, I don't even know what up from down is, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm still getting calls from my aunt, who's 2 years younger than me by way of the way our family is set up, right? Asking for $5. And I'm looking, on the other hand, I'm on a phone call with someone that's negotiating for $195,000. So like,
Yeah.
I can't even, there's times I couldn't even speak, which made therapy even more important. Because I was like, how do I tell my aunt, no to $5? And on this side, how do I tell an engineer no to $195,000 and then go home and eat dinner? And then everyone's like, you're two in your head. I'm like, I don't think I'm in my head. I'm pretty certain this is real, but it's hard to relate to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it just brought me even further into what the tech industry is really like and what to experience.
Yeah, you guys were building the airplane as it was, right?
Yeah, building the airplane, and while we're flying it, but like, I tried to interrogate, like, why was I able to do that? And it brought me back to just growing up. Like, building the airplane while flying it sounds like my family's experience. It's like I came out of the womb that way.
Yeah.
I was born in project housing. And
right.
That growth story, that growth trajectory, like every company's like, we want someone that knows, or we want people that understand like hockey stick growth. Made me think about like my mom, probably the strongest person in the world that I know. 16 years old with a kid, and then 19 years old with her second kid, which is my younger sister that's graduating from San Jose State. And then so she's 20 with 2 children, Latina in the world, born, into poverty. And by 30, she has a house and 2 master's degrees. Like, and I watched that happen.
Awesome.
I'm at Chuck E. Cheese. We're at Chuck E. Cheese, and she's studying for her second master's degree.
It's amazing, man.
That growth trajectory is everything that we've known to be true in our experiences. That's just how we operate. But
yeah, wow.
It allowed for that same resilience to show up in these experiences, because I saw it with my mom, I saw it with my family, my friends, everybody that understands like what we're doing requires us to be tough in the world, right?
Yeah.
To think quickly.
Right. Yeah. No, that's what I always tell my founders and students is, that first step is showing up. And so we have the opportunities, we have others that want to help us, but if we're not showing up, then they don't know how. And so, right, there's a lot of resources out there, and that's been part of this journey. And what you're doing today, right, is bringing people to those resources and sharing those resources.
Well, then that gets to the next part of the story, where OUTCO is first introduced. Like, I listened to one of the execs at Ernest, the company I was at the time, say, we want to hire people that can do a lot with a little. I'm like, we're in a building in downtown San Francisco. We have $360 million. Everyone here is from Harvard, Stanford, Penn, some of like the most celebrated and decorated institutions in the world. I'm like, do a lot with a little. We got a lot here. We should be able to do a lot, in my experience, right? From where I came from, we had nothing, right? So that kind of like tipped me off again, right? It's just like when I Google, I go to this training and I hear people with long last names. I'm like, what? Then I'm at this next company and I hear do a lot with a little. Again, that same feeling kicked in. I was like, what? So
360 million.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, like this is a lot. Like, please give me $360 million. Watch how much we're gonna do. But then I I was running a resume session for General Assembly. This is like 2015, late 2015. Just doing a free resume session, but to me it was very mutually beneficial because there was engineers in the room, and then I was able to introduce them to Ernest. So it was like a recruiting. Uh, um, it served as a recruiting function for me.
Yeah.
But one of the engineers came up and was like, "Hey, look, we'll pay you to do this with this group of customers that we have." So it's 3 engineers and there's 7 people in a hotel room in downtown San Francisco, and they're running a beta class for their company. So like this is the second time they did this. The first time they did it with 4 people. So 7 people in a room downtown San Francisco, and they're like teaching them how to interview. But they're working on the math and science side, more namely data structures and algorithms, right? Mm-hmm. So as an engineer knows, to pass an engineering interview, you need to understand data structures and algorithms and computer science fundamentals.
Right.
And and I was trying to understand like what was happening in this room, and I was like, why are you guys doing this? Because they paid me to do the resume session, which for one night, right? And you talk about money in tech, right? It was $100 for the 1 hour. And I was like, I'll do this for free, but yeah, pay me. And at that time, like, it's not like I'm like floating in cash, right? I'm only 2 years removed from college, and right, again, like my family's still now learning to be okay with helping me support the family. So now I'm not just, it's not just money for me, it's for everyone.
Right.
Which is true in most, of our experience. And another reason why therapy is important. But I'm in that classroom and I'm like, wait, this is exactly what I was thinking about in college. I was like, a room with people learning how to pass the interview process. And then if we can get the people in the room that I know will never be there, then we'll be in good shape, right? So I'm thinking about Black and brown people in this room, I'm thinking about women in this room, I'm thinking about LGBTQIA representation in this room, I'm thinking about differently abled people in this room. And the 3 engineers that were hosting the session, 2 of them, which are my teammates today, knew, we have the technical side down, now we need the other side down, right? And I've always thought about recruiting as a great lesson in emotional intelligence, right? How do you understand yourself and the person you're talking to well enough to, create a connection, right? Like, you have skills, we need skills. What communication tools do I use to help you understand that? And it immediately clicked for me. I was like, I want to do this. Like, I want to help you guys build this, right? And like, especially thinking about the fact that I just heard do a lot with a little. I'm like, all right, if you guys want to see someone do a lot with a little, I'm okay with jumping into this hotel room, which is nothing again, and from zero. But I mean, I'm not saying everyone should do this. I think I did it and I got lucky again because I found a supportive team and I was able to move through all the pressure of not having financial security when I was really dependent on financial security. At the time, I was supporting my sister through San Jose State, right? And then I was living with my then girlfriend and we were splitting the apartment. And so it was a very risky thing, but that paid off. But I had done a lot of studying to understand that this works. What this is OUTCO, we do a 4-week training program where we break down the technical interview process from the computer science side and also from understanding your recruiter. And it's like any preparatory program, right? We train on what communication skills you need and also how to understand the process and where you fit into it. And then we support you all the way through until you earn a job offer. And the way we get paid is when our customers get a job, they pay us, right? So there's a lot of trust there, right? Because if we don't perform, that means you don't perform. That means there is no money. So no one gets paid, right?
Yeah, no job, no payment.
No job, no payment. So all of our customers are like, yeah, like we trust you because, there's no way we can lie and be like, hey, we're not going to deliver. It's like, it's our livelihood. So I felt very aligned with the 3 engineers that were starting this off. 2 of them, which again are my teammates today, David Hopper and Ron too. Ron runs all the computer science training courses, and then David kind of sits in between me and Ron and creates the program around the computer science thinking and the emotional intelligence thinking. Great teammates. And, by the 3rd class, I had joined full time because at that point we were already generating revenue enough for a salary. I couldn't just jump ship without a salary. And for many reasons, right? Like, I don't have any financial backing. There's nobody really that could lend me a small loan of $1 million. I don't have any of that. I have whatever I can do, and that was what was true at the time. But what we saw and what we built with just honest, grit, and commitment to people's growth, learning, and development is a program that takes these experiences like tweeting at a recruiter and systematizing it, right? Like, how do you network? How do you, what level of confidence do you need in yourself to communicate your skills? What skills are the skills that resonate with recruiters? And so that kind of got me to that place. There's a little more to the story after, but I really want to know what you think I should be sharing for people listening, right? Because I do want to give away as much of the program as possible, because a lot of the stuff that we share forward is already on the internet. But
right, yeah, and we certainly have the chat app so they can ask questions, and we'll take some questions as they come through. And so that's awesome, man. You went from a pilot, right, to finding that product market fit, to hey, let's see how we scale this. And so how big is the team today?
With part-time folks included, we're 50 people now. Yeah, the team that started was 5 of us, then it grew to about 15 of us, and then there was some turbulent times in between. Our CEO is no longer with us. And we lost some teammates and gained new teammates over the years. But the product is the service, I should say, because it's not really a software product, it's an organized service, remains the same and true to what it does, helping people get jobs, helping people move past those roadblocks. But yeah, we do. So from that original effort, from that hotel room in San Francisco, we grew. We were servicing like 15 customers for the first 2 months. Then we grew to servicing 30 customers a month about a year later. And the operation grew from like a $40,000 safe, meaning like the original CEO put down some money, to a $2 million operation in about 2 years. And we had helped in my first run with the company 700 people, I believe, something like 700 people earned jobs in those 2 years. And it made a lot of noise, made a big impact. A lot of people started to trust the team as kind of like advisors on navigating the job search process.
Yeah.
And late 2017, I actually left the company and I joined Uber. Uber had reached out, and I built an iOS training program for them. So non-iOS engineers, full stack, backend, network, and whatever it may be, joining this program and becoming iOS engineers. And that was a lot of fun. I built that program for them in 10 or so months, and then left shortly after to move back to Massachusetts to kind of close loop with everything I had left behind. And when I was in Massachusetts, I worked for a company named Simply Business. It was an insurance tech company. It's trying to be the Uber for small to medium business insurance. Right, so like click of a button.
Right.
And there I helped build their learning and development department in Boston, but also got to work with the team in London, consulting on their tech initiatives. And that was also a lot of fun. Definitely stretched me again, but it was great to work with engineers outside of the United States and see how they think.
Right.
And so it was a win-win-win-win because I was at home, but I was also learning about London. Um, and it was a great time. The company grew from 25 to 120 in my time there. I got to advise recruiting and build learning and development. So a lot of these experiences started bleeding into each other. But the foundation was always, how do you think like an engineer, but also work on connecting people, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think like what I keep reflecting on is how important it is to find what it is you're passionate about for yourself and realize like in the tech industry, there's roles available for us because we don't have to be software engineers. Now, I'm going to say everyone should be a software engineer, but there's also support services outside of it: recruiting, marketing, HR, business development, um, recruiting coordination. Like there's a suite of roles.
Accounting, finance.
Finance,
Yeah.
everything.
Long list.
Long,
Long list.
which I'm sure you know, and I'm happy that you continue to share with everybody that you meet. But when it comes to computer science in specific, I think it's really important to recognize like the fear that we have. We can break it down by understanding what it is that's actually going into writing code. And if you take any computer science 101 class, the first thing they open with is machines and computers are stupid. They need to be told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the real art is in the programmer or the person owning the machine or the computer, because you tell the machine or the computer what to do. The barrier is understanding the language, right? Like what language does the computer listen to? I think about that all the time because I'm like, that is the exact same thing in the world outside of computers and machines.
Right.
Back in 2013, what I was learning that summer was how recruiters want to learn about your experience. Like, what language do they want me to use? You know, we talk a lot about like in Latino and Black community about code switching. Um, and like, I understand code switching comes from a place of our oppression and like surviving by way of talking to each other in ways that we can move forward. But I also understand that like there's a form of empathy in there that allows us to understand each other more quickly.
Right.
And if that to any interview process in general, not just tech, any interview, and just any connection with any person, you start to realize, like, oh, okay, so if I can empathize with the way that you want to hear what I'm saying, then I can deliver it to you, and now we don't have an issue between us. And that's a lot of it's a lot of what I try to share forward because I think in one light, like what if there is anything that holds us back from ourselves, it's understanding the language and then being able to use it. Um, and I try to when I'm coaching anyone, I try to shed light on that as much as possible because we can all learn to code if we put the time and the effort in. Um, the issue is that in the beginning, like the fear of not understanding this language. Right. And the moment we get to own that fear and say, like, this computer is stupid, it just needs to be told what to do.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at that point, it's like building blocks because it's like the same way that I had to learn like how to refine my English when I was younger. Like English was essentially a second language. I remember when I was like five, like I almost got held back from first grade because I refused to say spoon. I would always say cuchara in Spanish, right? Like cuchara.
Yeah.
But like I didn't even want to say cuchara. I was just making my own shit up. It was like cuchara.
Cuchara.
Like, and my mom is like, Papi, you understand this word. What is it? And I'm like, cuchara.
She's like, no, spoon.
But you know, and I realized like, okay, we learn how to understand different languages. This is just another language. Computer science is just another language that if we can own, then we can use to our advantage.
Right, right. And that's great, right? You break it down into the fundamentals, and then from there, what are the building blocks? And so,
yeah.
And
I think like part of, and this goes back to the conversation around therapy, it takes a lot of like mental space and emotional space to want to look at something long enough to understand it. And when we live in a world where we're constantly having to think about or over consider like what's happening to us in all these different situations, especially when you're the only one, it can be discouraging and isolating. So I know it's not as easy as just saying it's a language and learning it. We can break it down that way, but I think also too, like leaning on our family and friends when we're feeling alone is very
Mm-hmm.
important. Always reaching back and learning like uh, why it is you started that, what you were doing, and that we're always, we always have a place of community. We always have love.
Right.
Um, Part of the bigger reason why I left Uber and moved back to Massachusetts was to remember like where where I found the most love in Springfield and Lawrence and New York,
Mm.
in Massachusetts, and I still feel that way. Like right now, I'm living in Oakland, West Oakland, but my heart's always in New
Yeah.
York.
Lot,
And like,
lot of memories there. By the way, with you've shared a lot, about yourself and how you've been able to power through, etc. What about in working with your candidates, right? Like, when they face setbacks, right? Maybe some of them have the imposter syndrome, which is quite common for those that share it. How do you work with them in those areas?
yeah, building that confidence is probably what we've learned to be the toughest challenge for anybody that's looking to pass a technical interview,
Mm-hmm.
um, computer science, engineer or not, right? So I'm glad that you asked that question. It's There's a level of emotional detachment that we need to practice when being rejected for a job, that allows us to keep going, because it's real easy to get rejected from one job and paint your entire existence around that one rejection. Um,
Right.
Real easy to be like, look, I'm a failure because I got rejected from this one job. And the truth is, like, there's so many factors at play, and probably less than 10% of them are within our control. And those factors at play, some of them come from by way of bias, right? Like the other person doesn't understand us, nor has made the effort to. Um, and that's where we have to hold the tech industry accountable. But the other half of those is timing, luck, budget, like all these factors that like anyone that runs a business understands. It's like um, it's almost like we got to give appropriate amount of credit to what happens outside of us and what happens with us, and
Mm.
recognize that earning a job is first and foremost like a numbers game. We have every engineer apply to 25 jobs a week. I think
Okay.
that's for anyone looking for a job, especially if you want a job in a short amount of time.
Right.
There's for software engineers that are listening to this, there's a shortage of roughly like 500 to 600,000 um, like openings, or I should say, talent available for the openings, and that was listed in January, right? Um, Meaning, like, there's more openings than there is talent available in software engineering.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have asked, like, has that changed now that we're in a pandemic? This is the one industry that remained resilient, and those numbers haven't been wildly impacted. There's been a lot of software companies that have been shut down, but a lot of other companies have become more essential, Zoom being
Mm.
one of them. And I think a good reminder is for every time we look at our phone and whatever apps we're using, if we're using those apps, you can imagine everyone else is too. Those are companies that are probably still hiring today.
Right. Good signals, all right?
It's a good signal. It's
Yeah.
like if I know I'm on the Bank of America app, a software engineer wrote that. They're probably hiring software engineers, right?
Yep.
But then for the individual or like for our own journey, it's like, all right, one, no one in this interview process like wants you to fail. And that's hard to capture. It's hard to understand, but we'll break it down like this. When I was a recruiter, and most recruiters can share this experience confidently. Like when I'm interviewing someone, I want them to get the job, so I look good. Because if they get an offer, then the company says, "Wow, Josh is a great recruiter,"
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm talking to a bunch of candidates. If I picked up the phone to call you, I'm not calling you to reject you, because that's a waste of my time. right? So
Right.
it's selfish. So a lot of times engineers we're coaching are having to reconcile like, oh shit, like if they called me, it's because they already read my resume and that's already a green light. They want me to get an offer, so their career keeps going. So it's like a form of interdependence. When you start to recognize that, your mindset shifts because you're like, oh, they're asking me questions not to interrogate me or to get the right or wrong answer. They're asking me questions so they can learn who I am and share it with everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like a big game of telephone. Like the recruiter then goes to the hiring manager and says, here's what I learned that's really important. Then the hiring manager says, okay, yes or no. But the recruiter is our advocate. They're selling us to the rest of the team. And then the engineers in the interview process have a lot of work to do. They're not coming to these interviews to reject you flat out. They just want to know, are you going to help me do my job better or take off some of this work for me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's very minimal that you have engineers on the interview panel that are jealous or insecure enough to want you to fail because of a fear of them being overlooked. Those engineers might not even, typically companies won't even put them, or won't even ask them to interview. Like,
Right.
go work on something else. So like back to the confidence piece, like to build that confidence, it's on us to understand the process objectively and recognize like, okay, cool. One, like whatever I offer up is a value add. I'm actually helping this company do their job and live their mission. And the two things that I know I need to just continue working on for myself, which are within my control, is better understanding computer science fundamentals and practicing communication skills. Because how is anyone going to understand me if I can't tell them what I know,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, or how can anyone understand how I work if I don't explain how I solve problems?
Right.
So those are the pieces that we can't control. What we can control is the outcome of every interview process.
Mm-hmm.
And hard to come to that place inside because we're basically like asking ourselves to be inhuman. We're asking ourselves to be like a robot where it's like, okay, like yes, no, next, yes, no, next.
That's the algorithm.
The algorithm.
Right.
But in some ways, we can learn lessons from that because every time that we fail, every time we get rejected, we should be actively seeking the feedback and then using that to show up again in the next without any loss of momentum.
And is that something you guys are doing with the candidates? Like
every time. I mean, again, we have every engineer submit 25 resumes a week. So they're probably getting rejected 24 times. And then they get the one interview. And if they don't get past that interview, then they show up again the next week. And so it's a big emotional roller coaster, right? Especially if someone comes into the program and they're like, my dream job is this, and they get rejected. Right? And then, something we have to constantly share with folks today is like, think about beyond the dream job right now. Think about an essential job, right? Because those dream jobs right now aren't the ones that are readily available because we're all working on solving a problem as a society, which is how to get back to a healthy place of human connection.
Yep, so true. And so do you have any upcoming office hours per se that we can share with the audience? So as we have our Latinx community, wanting to get more information, learn more about the OUTCO program, maybe have some interaction or dialogue with yourself or some other team members.
Yeah, so we have our info sessions that happen regularly. Big shout out to Richie Nunez for connecting us and making this possible. But he's actively trying to connect people to our info sessions to learn more about OUTCO 4-week job search program. In the info session, you actually understand the ins and outs of what we offer and how we coach and how we train. You can go right onto our website, outco.io, outco.io, and you can sign up for our info session there. They happen every week. And then beyond that, we offer classes like our Google interview prep class where we break down Google interview problems and offer up training and a perspective for folks to actually succeed in those interviews from a technical standpoint. But beyond that, if anybody wants to connect directly, you can reach out to our team, outreach@outco.io. So OUTREACH at OUTCO.io. And Jess, if you want to share my email address, I'm always open to connecting with people directly.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And we'll follow up with the audience with this information so that we can ensure that they have it. But I know we've reached an hour, and I think we could probably talk for a few more hours. But Josh, thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you for sharing the background of your journey. I think it's always important to share that with others, especially our Latinx community, so that they know someone else, right, that's in the industry, the path that they've taken, some of the challenges that they faced, and then also the ability to be open and transparent, just around mental health, because it's so crucial, right? It's so critical, especially in these times as well. And so I definitely was serious about, let's start a movement, because I keep hearing it more and more, and it becomes mission critical again during these times that we have.
Big time.
So, yeah. So
I appreciate you putting on for us always, not forgetting about us, and making sure that we're in the forefront of this conversation.
Well, we need to be. And so on behalf of myself and We're All Human and the Hispanic Star, thank you for being a Hispanic Star in Tech. And we look forward to following up and having more conversations with you. So thanks to the audience for joining us. Have a good week.
You too. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.